studies, I can also help with that too. Let me see. I think you might have to enable me to share. So, doop. Perfect. Thank you. All right. So I have a presentation. I'm going to try and keep it short because I do want this to be more interactive as much as possible. So if you have any questions along the way, definitely put into the Q&A in your in the Zoom session, and I'll be very happy to answer it along the way. Also at the end as well, if you have any questions, I'll be very, very happy to answer. So what is electrical and computer engineering, right? And I get this a lot, like, even when I was like in all of your shoes, ECE was like, and in those days it was just EE. There was no computer, right? Like, and it was only a few years later they said, let's put C into ECE, right? A lot of people don't know what electrical and computer engineering is, right? How does ECE, like, what does it do? Like, what do people with an ECE degree do? What do I get out of it? How does it help me grow professionally as well as personally? And really the answer like might fascinate all of you. It's like, okay, so there's electrical and computer engineering. Most people think of computer boards. They might think of like power lines. They might think of maybe wireless, but there's so much more. There is so much more to electrical and computer engineering and its impact, right? I would like to say that electrical and computer engineering affects all of our lives. The fact that we're having this Zoom session right now, 100%, the majority of the technology, okay, so maybe I'm exaggerating, but without electrical and computer engineering, this would not happen. Your cell phone would not happen. The electric lights in your house would not happen. The smart thermostat in your house would not happen, or your cars, or the planes that fly, and your GPS. None of that would happen. Okay, so let's jump into it, right? So suppose this is the world we live in, and you know what? Honestly, it is the world we live in, right? We got windmills, we got planes, helicopters, bridges, maybe we have environmental areas with sensors and such, houses, pacemakers for people who need it for their hearts and such, cell phones, cars that sense, like lane changing and all that, as well as autonomous vehicles that are slowly going on the road. We got all of this, right? But where does ECE fit into all of this? Like this smart world, this world we live in with all these conveniences. It fits on all of these, right? Those windmills, it's a form of green energy, right? That energy that's generated as the wind turbine turns and then goes through a smart grid, an intelligent grid that then takes that power and brings it to our homes eventually, right? The planes that are in the air, the way they fly, the way they talk with ground control with each other and all that jazz, that is electrical and computer engineering with the localization and navigation and communication. That pacemaker that's on you, or like any other sort of medical sensing device that's on you, like let's say you have a pulse oximeter to see how much oxygen is in your bloodstream. Let's say if you're taking a checkup, like your blood sugar level because you're diabetic, or anything like that. A sensing technology that connects with you to find out how healthy you are. That is electrical and computer engineering. The cell phones, obviously, very much electrical and computer engineering. The ability to electrically connect with each other using electromagnetic propagation. The sensors in our environment, like how good is the water quality? How healthy is our forests in terms of, let's say, the amount of carbon dioxide they take into it and then store, right? Maybe the pollution levels. That is electrical engineering and computer engineering. I have to be very careful. Even the connected and autonomous vehicles. It looks automotive, but wait. The sensing technologies, the LiDARs, the radars, the cameras, the rear-facing camera, lane changing, all that. Sensing and actuation technology, that is electrical and computer engineering, right? So what happens is, from a high school perspective, again, like, we base everything, our decisions, a lot of like what our own experiences are at that moment, right? And again, goes back to the story of me, right? Like, when I grew up, my father was a civil engineer. I learned a lot about concrete. I learned a lot about like bridge design and highway design and all that jazz, right? We also did a lot of home renovations at home. And part of me is saying, oh, civil engineering, because like I like to build stuff. I like to build stuff. I like to design. I like to like be sort of creative in coming up with solutions, right? I also had a knack for math. I had a knack for physics. Not so much for chemistry, but that's okay. It's like I was okay in chemistry, right? And I took some computer science. And I was like, but somehow civil engineering, I didn't like, I read brochures, I went to open houses, didn't quite resonate with me. Same thing with math, same thing with a lot of others. And then what happened is I said, you know what? Like one thing I always was fascinated by was in those days, we didn't have cell phones, or not really widespread, but I was like fascinated by like wireless transmission. Like how did TV broadcast over the air? A little bit about the internet, obviously. Radios, like I had a pair of walkie-talkies, and I dug into it some more, and I said, you know what? I'm going to give it a shot. At that time, I didn't know anything about electrical engineering, except for the fact that it touched upon these ideas. And I had, again, like sort of the right background in terms of what I needed to go into ECE. And nowadays, like all of you probably, or most of you, okay, because some of you might not have taken computer programming, but you know what computer programming is. Even from the movies, you have some person, some hacker person, on front of a huge computer with just code and code and code coming down, like this, like little animation here. And then most of you have probably heard of robots, like arms, like, or autonomous vehicles and things like that. But where's electrical and computer engineering in this? This is not something you hear in high school, but where electrical and computer engineering fit is actually interfacing these two. Computer software code, I remember when I did it in high school, it was like, we just did abstract things, like make a thing that counts to 20, or, make this thing that translates English into Dutch, or make this thing that prints receipts and things like that. Like it was very abstract, right? And robotics, it was, again, the same thing. It was like, wire this motor to this switch to do X, Y, Z, and maybe throw some code, but it's magical. Don't worry about how the two connect with each other. Well, electrical and computer engineering is that interface between the cyber world, the information world, the programming world, and the physical world, the actuation, the sensing, the environment that we live in. We don't live in cyberspace. We live in the physical reality we're in, right? And so ECE is that bridge between both worlds. And one great bridge is baby monitors. Like I swear, this has been a godsend for us ever since our daughter was born. She's now 3, but we're always worried. We put her down to bed, and the number one fear when you put a kid to bed, regardless how far off the ground they are, like a foot or 20 feet off the ground, is, are they going to roll off, right? So, we get these things. Like this was a previous version. Unfortunately, as we found out, dropping these things in water, electronics and water don't mix unless it's like, waterproof. And so it's like, okay, baby monitor. Baby monitor is a perfect example of like what electrical and computer engineering tries to do between bridging our physical world with that of information in the cyber world, right? So in this very simple thing that you can buy on Amazon for $20, you got wireless connectivity. You got camera sensors that take the image of your loved one. You have a microphone sensor to hear if she's crying, like, uh-oh, Julia needs help. And you go upstairs from the first floor. A speaker even, although we've never used a speaker on our daughter. It's like completely useless, just makes her more scared. It's like, Julia, like that's like the worst thing to keep her asleep. And then the monitor unit. In addition to that, there's a battery supply, right? Power source. So these like kind of complex technologies all got to be engineered together to work with each other to do what a baby monitor should be doing, right? So let's take this thing apart. And you got, the characteristic green blob of a circuit board, and you got wires, you got little of these like, computer chips on this, and there's a silvery thing, and you got like a little speaker thingamajig. But look closely. That little wire at the top over here, and then, over here, the thing that says ANT, that's an antenna. That is how electromagnetically your wireless signal gets translated to electrical energy and then goes into this box, this silver box. That silver box, that's a shield that covers basically a wireless radio that translates that electromagnetic propagation, that wireless signal, into electrical information that then goes to this little thing here, Sonic's SN93330. That's the computer chip that translates that wireless information into a digital image, right? And all of this, guess what? Needs power. And well, fortunately, we have a lithium-ion battery that's rechargeable over here to power all of this. And there's a bunch of other stuff here, like, these little things like resistors and capacitors and switches and other chips that do specific functions. All of these work in concert with each other in order to do, this very, very narrow focus operation called monitoring baby. Right? And it has to do it reliably, right? Otherwise, it's like, why am I buying this thing off of Amazon if it doesn't do what, give it 1 out of 5 stars, right? So, okay. You might say, okay, I'm not going to choose an ECE major because I'm going to design or at least take apart and understand baby monitors. This is just an illustration of what electrical and computer engineering allows you to kind of analyze all these devices that we take for granted, and also enable you to design, let's say, future versions of these, like maybe not baby monitors, but let's say autonomous vehicles or satellites that go into orbit or to Mars or something like that. Or let's say the latest computer technology, like a server and, various types of computer chips and such. Now, the thing is, so far I've talked was blah, 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 geek. I've talked about green boards with like little electronic components on them, and that's probably the image a lot of people think about electrical and computer engineering. And the way I like to think about it is these things are both a product and they're tools. But ECE really is about people. It's about teamwork. It's about critical thinking skills. It's about solving problems. It's about solving hard problems. And to do all of this together, that's what ECE is. And at WPI ECE, we definitely take this to heart. Like, our close-knit community focuses on learning about working together to solve hard problems using critical thinking skills, using the latest technologies. All right? In terms of the size of our department, there are 23 full-time faculty, here in WPI ECE. There's approximately 400 undergraduate students, of which 100 graduate every year and then 100 come in or transfer in. We see a lot of transfers. We actually see a lot of transfers in from other programs because people say, you know what? I've been hearing more about this ECE thing, and this is where I think I should be going, right? Because of what we do, that interface, that bridge between the different worlds and different technologies out there, right? And people say, oh, okay, 400, that's an awful lot of students. Yeah, but look at the course population size on average. And, sure, these numbers are from 2017, 2018, but heck, they're about the same nowadays, too. We get about 73 students on average into 2,000 level classes. That's our second year classes. Okay, cool. 3,000 level, that's like junior level, third year level type classes. We get much smaller because the topics become much more focused. And then 25 at the 4,000, the senior level classes, the fourth year level classes that you'll be taking. Those are kind of the most advanced undergraduate classes that folks take. Definitely, you can also take here at WPI ECE, grad level ECE and grad level other courses as well, in case it's like, oh shucks, they don't have this at the undergrad level, this course in analog IC design, but they have one in the grad level. You can take that. You can take that definitely at WPI ECE. We also have 150 grad students, and we have a bunch of research are conducted by our faculty here in the department. And in terms of faculty expertise, we kind of cover, wide spectrum, if you will, of different topics. Like, we have world experts across a whole bunch of different domains. Like for instance, e-health, that electronic health, pacemakers, and electronic limbs or artificial limbs that like connect to your nervous system, right? We also have things like body area networks and MRI design and other types of technologies that really advance the current state of the art in medical, sort of the medical field, because sure, like medicines and pharmaceuticals and let's say healthcare practices and such are really important, but there's a lot of electrical technology that's involved in the health profession. Like for instance, like I mentioned, pulse oximeters, things that also keep track of your heart rate, and other sorts of sensors, other sort of actuators, other sort of devices that make your life, the quality of your life, better in terms of your health, right? The cyber physical, that's everything from wireless and autonomous vehicles and systems engineering and machine learning and electronic design of like computer boards and computer chips and all that. That's under cyber physical. That's this little green blob here. There's also a large cybersecurity component here in the department that really focus on how do you make all this electronic stuff secure, right? Because the thing is that like, you have electronic stuff and it does these things, and people are out there always wanting to mess around with your electronics. Whether it's like a malicious code that affects your firmware, or eavesdropping, or doing stuff like getting like, let's say, finding out what encryption you're using on that hardware device, okay, to do bad stuff with your device, like cracking into it afterwards or something like that. So we do quite a bit of cybersecurity, more at the grad level, but still, like we have a lot of folks that specialize in the department here. And then finally, power and sustainability, right? Like power systems engineering and photovoltaic cells and everything in between. That we do also here at WPI ECE. And that translates into a lot of great opportunities for MQP, because a lot of our faculty, what they do is, unless you come and say, I got this great idea for an MQP, can I possibly do this with you as my advisor? And a lot of professors say, yeah, cool. Sometimes you just love the professor and what they do and say, give me an MQP topic and I'll do it. And they'll say, sure, you bet. And what they do is they take something from their research, their cutting edge research, and they say, I think this would really be cool as an MQP, and work together to create that project, right? And on our YouTube channel, right, if you go to the YouTube and look for WPI ECE, we have quite a few videos about like sort of the end results of several MQPs. And this is sort of typical of what to expect from our students, from what you would take as an MQP here in the WPI ECE. Right, and I'll pass this, but these videos are again on YouTube, so definitely check them out. Right, okay. So you probably see this flow chart and say, "Wow, what is this thing?" Well, what this thing is the courses, okay, the different courses and how they relate to each other as part of our program. Right. So we got a ton. We got a ton of stuff. Like I said, we got fundamental courses. This is to give you, let's say you've never touched a circuit in your life. You don't know what a resistor is. What is an embedded processor? What is a signal? What is a transistor? You will, by your first and partway through your second year here at WPI ECE, you will learn all this stuff. Okay, and then after that, well, intermediate courses, that comes after fundamental courses. This is when you begin to scratch into it some more and say, oh wow, I love wireless communications. I'm biased, I'm a wireless person. And I'm saying, okay, I want to get some more specialization out of wireless. So you begin taking 2312, 2305. You begin also to dig into the more advanced courses, such as 3311, 3308. So these classes, like 2305 is an introduction to communications and networks. Do you know what DHCP is? Do you know what TCP/IP is? Do you know what data transmission is? Do you know what satellite communications is? Do you know what socket programming is? 2305 teaches you all of that. Do you know what a wireless environment is? What's wireless propagation? What's Wi-Fi? How does it work? That's in 3308. Hey, tell me more about real-time signal processing. You gotcha. It's in 4703. So what happens is we design our curriculum such that you go from the very basic, like 2010, gets everybody on the same footing, all the way down to these really advanced topics in your final year here at WPI in the ECE, right? And then don't forget $27.99. Oh, I'm going to talk about that in a second. So just give me a second. So and I just described, I kind of took the jelly out of that donut here, is our programs also organized by like columns. So if you want to be just computer engineering, like I love computer engineering, I really love computers, I love embedded, I have a Raspberry Pi, this is my calling. Well, perfect, because we got six courses in just computer engineering in the green here on the right. Do you like communications like myself, like wireless and data communications? Well, that's what the middle thing is all about. Communications, control theory, biological signal processing, all of that jazz, and machine learning, that's all in the middle thing here. Do you like power engineering? Do you like to design analog circuits? Do you like electromagnetics and radio frequency propagation? Well, that's the left blue box here over here, right? So what happens is our curriculum is devised both in terms of you progress, you build upon knowledge from past courses until you develop sort of a really cool skill set of tools that help you professionally. And then you can also concentrate into like specific kind of areas that you really like wireless, absolutely, with some computer engineering. I love analog with maybe some computer engineering. You can mix and match. So, and remember, WPI, very importantly, there's no required courses. Everything's recommended courses. So, the flow chart here, the solid lines means recommended. If you take 2010, then that is a recommended course for 2019. You can also, let's say, do ECE 3012, and what's recommended there is ECE 2019. But hey, it's also suggested that you also take 2311, the little dash line here. So we have these types of courses that we indicate what would be recommended to take in advance, as well as what would be good, what would be helpful, and working with your advisor can help you guide you through that. Now, first year, because I want to kind of articulate what is your experience going to look like. Everyone's experience is going to vary, but generally this is what it looks like. Year one, you're going to be taking a lot of math. Hopefully you got some AP credit. If you don't worry about it. Some science like chem and physics and chem, physics, computer science. You're going to start taking humanities and arts classes as part of your requirement there. You're going to start taking some first year ECE classes like 2010, which is kind of like the sort of the grounding ECE class for all other ECE classes, as well as 1799, which is kind of like, hey, I still don't know what this ECE thing is. I heard Wiglinski kind of ramble, but I still don't have a clear perception what it's all about and what is it going to do for me at the end of the day. 1799 is your class. It's so you could be completely undecided. You take ECE 1799, and it will show you through a lot of guest lectures and exercises what is electrical and computer engineering. There's also insight advising, and then also socialization. Play sports, get into a student club, Dungeons and Dragons, you name it, just get involved, right? And then this thing, the academic advising, because we have recommended classes and suggested classes and all that, very important, you take advantage of academic advising. Every student has a faculty academic advisor when they come in. Definitely, please reach out to them. If you know what you want, double check to see what you want makes sense. A number of times I have students come in and say, I exactly know what I want. And then I said, not advisable to take 3 lab intensive ECE classes in one term. That's going to make you not have a lot of sleep that term, right? And then we work together and we move to make it more optimal. The last thing you want to have is 4 years of WPI education. You want 4 years of awesome WPI education, especially electrical and computer engineering. And that's where academic advising comes in. If, on the other hand, you come to WPI ECE and you're like, ECE, let's say this presentation sells you and say, I got to do ECE. Wiglinski can't be wrong. He's just so excited, but I still don't know what exactly to do with ECE. Again, academic advising is so critical. it's really great to like kind of guide you through your 4 years of journey here, right? Now, year 2 is when you just like jump off the deep end and you go in completely into ECE major area foundation courses, right? So 60% of the courses are going to be lab. Again, very important. Talk with your advisor. Don't like put 2 or 3 courses in the term that are all lab intensive. Like you'll be living in the labs. And of course, what you want a nice balance, okay? You want to mix up lab with non-lab courses, because then what happens is allows for an enriching, great, positive experience, right? And then also because it's all project-based, right, or course-based labs and all like that jazz, the hands-on experience is actually really, really important, because you see things in class and then you build them in the lab or at home with a project team or something. And the big number one project-based class, other than MQP, is ECE 2799, which is Electrical and Computer Engineering Design. This is the number one class in ECE that everybody talks about. Like people say, this has been the best experience I've ever had after graduating. A lot of alums say that and such, right? So what happens is, like this class, like it's not just like, okay, plug in resistor, take a measurement, plug in a resistor, take a measurement. No, 2799 is a combination of, okay, here's you, I'm going to assign 200 team members, come up with something that is in the theme of, I don't know, personal safety, like let's say healthcare safety, like, you know, let's say, and just leave it like that. Okay, and then you go to 2 team members, you brainstorm, and it begins to look like Shark Tank. It's like you brainstorm and say, how about something that helps me look at, like see around me at night? Very good. So let's say and forget about night vision, something that's practical that you can do for $50 or less, a design that allows you to be safe and walk through, let's say your house or like down your driveway and no lights are on, not to bump into things. And then you have 7 weeks in that term to come up with a proof of concept that you then have to present to your class and to a panel of entrepreneur judges. And then what happens is it's actually pretty cool. There's like first place, second place, third place. So it's a really cool experience. This is kind of the MQP before the MQP. And it's really, really awesome. Then year 3, what happens is most of you are probably going to do IQP. Well, you have to do IQP, but there are a lot of off-campus IQP experiences. And that's what usually happens in 3rd year, combined with quite a few ECE classes. You begin jumping into kind of really specialized courses. Some students start taking grad courses here in ECE as well. And then 4th year, you actually start doing your MQP. You're probably taking quite a few grad courses and advanced ECE undergrad classes, and you begin to wrap things up. You think about your career and industry, or maybe grad school or something. But what happens is this is kind of like the sort of the final step in your undergraduate experience, right? And then in terms of like MQPs, we have both on-campus experiences as well as off-campus in various places like MITRE and Lincoln Lab and Silicon Valley. And then you might say, okay, so I get this degree, and this is really important. So you say, okay, if I go for an ECE degree, what are my job prospects? Very, very, very good. It's like over 90%. If I heard correctly, I think a couple of years ago, it was nearly 100%. Like ECE majors are definitely in demand because we live in a world where we have all these electronic services around us, right? Like, oh, I'm going to order this and it's going to come tomorrow. Oh, my car is driving itself. Oh, I'm going to fly this drone over there and it's going to it's going to record, I'm going to shoot some really cool video and put it on, upload it to YouTube. And then, oh, I'm going to put sensors in my backyard to look for deer and take a photograph of them. You name it, right? Everything around us, those are very specific examples. But our entire world depends on ECE majors, like yourselves. So what happens is employment opportunities are all over the place. So like that's the thing. And the way we teach, that hands-on learning, theory and practice, is really something that employers look for, because you not only are theory smart, you're also practical smart. You're able to kind of look at a problem and say, okay, what's the first step? How do I come up with a solution that's cost effective? Like I say to my students in my class, how do Like engineers do for 10 cents what everybody else does for $1, right? And so some employers of our ECE alum include like this list and more, right? Of course, that would be very, very small fonts. But what ends up happening is we have, okay, a lot of our students, okay, definitely don't have a problem finding employment opportunities after they graduate with us, okay? Okay, so everything I described, it makes it sound like, wow, it seems exciting. Again, Wiglinski's very excited, but it also looks really crazy hard. Yes, ECE is definitely a very demanding degree, but our department's a close-knit community. We have 3 separate student organizations specifically in ECE. We have the IEEE, Institute of Electrical Electronic Engineers. It's an international professional organization with chapters all around the world. We have one here at WPI ECE, and they run a whole bunch of events, networking opportunities, seminars, even like barbecues and such. There's HKN, Eta Kappa Nu, that's our honor society, and they run Pizza Fridays and other sort of like events, again, to bring folks, all of us together, right? And then we see Women in Electrical and Computer Engineering, right? And all of these organizations, we like, you know, sure, the degree it can be very demanding, but we're all in this together. We're one close-knit community, like students and staff and faculty, all of us, right? And that's what makes this such a great experience for everyone. So with that, I'm going to sort of close out and just like, you know, turn the floor to any questions. And I'm not sure, I guess it's all going to be tight. And you know, feel free to you know, ask me anything about like the department, and I'll do my best to answer. So with that, yeah, thank you. Hopefully I wasn't on mute or anything like that. So any questions from the audience? And everyone's kind of quiet. But then again, it's also like Friday afternoon, but hopefully I like supercharge your weekend with like, you know, saying electrical and computer engineering. Okay, so maybe one thing that, here's a couple of questions I've already heard from folks from several other like accepted student events over the past several weeks. So one question is like, is it possible to take a co-op during my experience, like your degree in ECE? Absolutely. In fact, the way we're set up, because we teach in 7-week terms, what I've seen a lot of cases is that folks, what they'll do is they usually have the summer, so that's 3 months. And then what ends up happening is, in addition to summer, they take 1 or 2 terms off, either, let's say, the first 2 terms of the year or the last 2 terms of the year, or a term before and after that summer, so you get like a nice 8-month experience to co-op at a company. There's some consequences to that as well. You might not be in sync with your friends that you've been going through that undergraduate experience so far up to your co-op, because what's going to happen is they'll take several more courses than you, and they'll be in a few classes ahead. But on the other hand, this is a fantastic way of like, you know, sort of getting that practical hands-on experience in industry, learning the latest current state of the art of what's used out in a corporate environment. And then when you come back to WPI ECE, it's like, hey, this makes sense now. Like, I understand why I'm learning this and that. Oh, I got 2 questions. I'm just talking about co-ops. Okay. So question. So is it possible to take the beginner ECE courses over the summer to get a head start in ECE curriculum? The answer is maybe. It depends on when these courses are offered. So if you go online, so there are quite a few 1st and 2nd year ECE classes are offered. I don't know about 2010. I do know there are like ECE classes in computer engineering, like ECE 2029, which I believe is like basically digital logic, and ECE 2049, which is embedded system design. So those 2 are offered in the summer. 2010, maybe. I don't know that off the top of my head. I could check. Oh, let me check. But what happens is you could definitely take it. I don't know, and maybe this is a good admissions question, like, because I think officially you become an undergraduate student like starting like August 15th. I don't know if it's possible, and this is probably a really good question, if you can take, before you start as an ECE student, summer classes in ECE and then roll them into your undergrad degree. So maybe Alicia, is that feasible or not? I'm somehow intuitively, I think yes, but I'm going to leave it with the expert.
So I'm actually not sure. I would recommend, I can type this in the chat, our admissions website, just so that we can kind of reach out and ask, because I know it just depends. We also have frontiers for credit, and I'm not sure if that's something that they might have one of those courses that might be something that they could do over the summer and then get credit for it, but I'm not sure like what credit, like what courses are offered.
Okay. Yeah. Oh no, in terms of what courses is offered, like that's what I'm trying to find out. Right now. Oh, here we go. I'm just like checking online right now. So let's filter out. Find electrical and computer engineering. So this summer alone, we have, so we have ECE 2010 that's offered, ECE 2049, ECE 2029, and cool, ECE 3829, which is Advanced Digital Systems Design with FPGAs. So I'll put that in the chat. But no, very, very much so it sounds like you can definitely kickstart things with taking some of those introductory ECE classes. So great question. So another question. To what level of coding programming do you need for doing advanced ECE classes? That depends. That totally depends. Usually what happens is let me think. So it depends. I think what ends up happening is you're probably going to take, if you haven't taken computer programming or you haven't taken AP credit in computer programming, what you'll do is you'll probably take like a 1000 level CS class just to kind of get your hands dirty in terms of how to do computer programming if you have no exposure to it. And then you do kind of like, programming or CS for non-majors. And what that will do is that's at the 2000 level, that kind of like allows you to give you just sort of the necessary skill set in order to do computer programming ECE. So we don't do anything super advanced. Like, for instance, we don't program operating systems and or anything of that level of complexity. But what you do want to be familiar with is, like, for instance, can you write software that, for instance, you can write up functions. You can have global variables that pass variable, values from anywhere from within the software. Do you know what a int is? Do you know what a structure is? And it also depends on the language as well. Like, so for instance, all my classes, I do Python, right? Other faculty, they do C, C++. Some faculty, what they do is they use something called MATLAB. It's not a programming language. It's kind of a programming language, but it's used in a lot of places in electrical and computer engineering. They have a great set of skills and such, but it really varies. But I think if, like, let's say if you've taken a computer science class and you know what a variable is, you know what a structure is, and what a function is, you know how to compile code. If you're able to do something with that code, like let's say do file read, file write, maybe even doing some plotting, then you're doing spectacularly well, right? So if you've heard the terms I just mentioned in terms of computer programming, like that's pretty much the level that folks here in ECE, especially at the advanced level, like at the advanced level, of course, you're going to go a lot deeper, but the fundamentals are about the same, right? And again, it varies, depends on what type of software, programming language you're using, right? Like, so Arduino would be like, Arduino uses its own version of whatever, C, right? And then Python is a little bit more of a scripting language. And then some people do C, C++ as well. So cool. And a follow-up question is, what skills do you think are needed for doing well and succeeding in ECE? Well, okay, so definitely with ECE, like you have to have some like, yeah, you should have some comfort, or like, you should be okay with like doing mathematics, right? So calculus, sure. But calculus, what happened is that leads to something like differential equations, and then there's also linear algebra, and then there's probability theory. So that we require in the curriculum. What happens is different math will be used in different parts of ECE, right? So wireless communications, linear algebra is used an awful lot. But if you do something like electromagnetics and radio frequency design and everything, differential equations actually is used more frequently. There's also discrete mathematics, and that's more done in like, computer engineering. Physics, again, like, like I would say things like electromagnetics is actually pretty important, depending on which part of EC you're looking at. Like, again, like in signals and systems, that's actually like electromagnetics is pretty important. Also, I think in addition to that, to be successful, the ability to work in a team, I think, to be able to communicate, and also the thing, sort of being excited by not only the technology, but to do something that has impact, right? So like, the ECE major is like really is to prepare you for doing great things after you graduate from WPI, to make a mark on our world, to make it a better place, right? So, all that software coding that you need to program embedded processors or radios and such, as well as, let's say, designing circuit chips and stuff, that all kind of leads to what is it going to do at the end of the day. So I think there needs to be some level of enthusiasm. Like if you think it's like, wow, I want to do something really cool, you have these skill sets that allow you to, and like this sort of like, I like math, I like physics, and I'm able to kind of like, I kind of really enjoy trying to solve problems practically. I think all of this is creativity and working with folks, I think will lead to that type of success. Okay, I was a bit confused. Are any of those introductory courses offered this summer? Ah, yes. Oh, that's a good question. Let me see. That is actually an excellent question. It looks to me like those are in person, but I do not know. Oh, it's hybrid. So it's hybrid. It's a hybrid offering. So whether you want to do it online or in person, like you can definitely do either one of those. So that's a really good question. Let me find that. I want to find that. But okay, there's another question in the chat, which is following. So, is software engineering part of EC? So there is a course called software engineering in computer science. Okay, and in software engineering, the focus there is to do the like let me emphasize this, big software engineering projects. Like let's say I want to make an operating system. Then you do software engineering. You're in a team of 16 other people, and you learn the methodology of how to all do coding that at the end of the day all works together to solve or do a specific deliverable or objective. So that's a great question. Aside from programming languages, what courses deal with hardware description? So those courses involve, like in particular, so HDL 3829 deals with, I'm not sure if it's Verilog or VHDL, but yeah, that class is at the 3000 level deals with FPGAs. And then folks who are really interested in VHDL and hardware description languages, some of them actually take grad courses in that. We actually have quite a few grad courses in HDL. That's a great question. Thank you. Okay, another Q. Oh, thanks. Yay. Okay. Any other questions? I mean, I think the time is up. Let me find that link before we go, because like this was actually super duper helpful. If you want to see what's offered in the summer, there we go. So if you do a search, courses. Any last questions before we call this a session? Okay, here we go. There we go. Any other questions? Like nobody asked about like summer internships or anything like that? When to take them? No? Okay. Yeah, no, but that's the thing. A lot of folks in our department take summer internships between their sophomore and junior year, as well as their junior to senior year. In a lot of cases, because of the market, quite a few companies that folks intern with at the end of their junior year, before their senior year. Quite a few companies say they'll give a job offer right at the end of their summer internship, even though they're going to graduate 9 months later because of how the market is. Yeah, so how about I share this? Boop. There we go. So this screen here, if you go to hub.wpi.edu, and I'm going to put this in the chat, and let's see if everyone else can do this too. What happens is this shows the courses that are being offered this summer, right? So the course numbers actually here in microscript fonts like 2010 and 2049 and 2029, and then yeah, and see that hardware description language course, that's this one, 3829. And then if you want to do the grad level of these, a lot of them are actually taught by this professor, Professor Navabi. So he's spectacular, right, for teaching. Just quickly, can everyone access that link, or is it sending to something that's like saying cannot find page or anything like that? Can folks access that? Like show of hands, like voting or anything like that? I think there should be like a vote feature or something like that. No? Oh, wait, chat. I do not see the link. Nope. Sigh. Okay. Let's try. Okay, how about we try this? If you just go to, I went to this link, okay, and then if you click view 2022 course schedule, boop, and then you choose course view course filter, and you go to ECE, boop, you'll find what's offered during summer 2022. All right. So I'm not sure. Are there any last minute questions or anything like that? No. And I don't think I have any questions for, okay, do we need to get special access into this? That's actually very interesting. I think I might, because my credentials, although I logged into my other computer here, I have 2 computers because I just love having computers all around me. I don't think I'm using my credentials here and I'm able to access it. I think in the worst case, one thing to do is you can always email the WPI registrar, right? And you can ask them saying, hey, I would like to take some summer classes, even though I'm starting this fall. What are the offerings for ECE? And they'll produce this exact same thing and help you register for that if it's possible, okay? All right, my friends. So it was great talking with all of you. If you have any other questions, one more. Thank you. Oh, excellent. Actually, thank you. One thing, let me put my email address. I did not put that on the slide. So my email address is that. So if you have any other questions or anything, feel free to send me a note and I'll do my best to answer. And if I don't know the answer, I will find someone who can answer it. So, excellent. Oh, I just love McGill alumni. Thank you all, and have a great rest of the day and have a great weekend. Stay safe, y'all, and take care. And Alicia, thank you so much for hosting this as well, and have a great weekend.
You too. Nice to meet you as well.
Thank you. Take care, y'all.